The blind girl sat before the old piano in the corner of the lobby. The man mopping floors knelt beside her, hand brushing dust off the lid. "If I play wrong, don't laugh at me," the little girl said. "I can't even remember which keys are which." Music lifted, slow and clear as yellow lamplight. He gently touched another key, creating perfect harmony. The door opened, high heels stopped, midair. The woman looked at the scene, face going pale. She whispered, "Impossible, my husband used to teach her exactly like this." And for the first time, the cold CEO cried in the middle of her own building. Daniel Reed, 36 years old, single dad, once a celebrated sound engineer who worked with recording studios and musicians. But after a devastating car accident 3 years ago that left him partially deaf in one ear and took his wife Sarah's life, he switched to working as a night janitor at Voss Tower. The transition had been humiliating at first, from recording studios to mop buckets, from mixing boards to cleaning supplies. But Daniel had learned that pride was a luxury he couldn't afford with a son to raise alone. He lived quietly with his young son, Evan, 9 years old, soft-spoken, well-behaved, with a habit of listening to piano music to fall asleep. The same pieces his mother used to play before the accident, before everything changed. Every night, Daniel cleaned the large ground floor lobby of the 40-story building where an old piano sat abandoned in the corner. It had once hosted ceremonial events, dignitary visits, holiday celebrations. Now it gathered dust like a forgotten memory, a relic of elegance nobody had time for anymore. One night around 11 p.m., when the building was supposed to be empty except for security and cleaning staff, he heard discordant piano keys. Someone trying to play in the darkness. Not vandalism. The sounds were too tentative, too careful, more like searching than destroying. He approached quietly, not wanting to startle whoever was there, and saw a little girl about 8 years old. She wore an expensive dress, probably from earlier in the day, now wrinkled. Her eyes were closed tight, not in concentration, but in permanent darkness. Her small fingers searched across the keys like reading Braille, like trying to find meaning in chaos. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" he asked as softly as possible, kneeling down to her level. "No, sir. I came to learn piano. My teacher was supposed to meet me at 9, but she never came. Mom is working late upstairs. I thought I could practice while waiting." He looked at the girl more carefully. Long, dark hair pulled back with an expensive clip. Bright, intelligent face despite eyes that never opened. Designer shoes. This was someone's wealthy daughter. Someone's precious child. "I clean lobbies, don't know how to teach piano properly. But I remember rhythm. I used to work with music before I lost my hearing." The girl's face lit up with that genuine smile children have before they learn to fake emotions. "You lost your hearing?" "Me too. Well, not hearing, sight, but we both lost something. Maybe that means you can teach me. Maybe you understand." "What's your name?" "Lila. What's yours?" "Daniel. Nice to meet you, Lila." "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Daniel. My mom says I should call adults Mr. or Miss. She's very proper." Just like that, without planning or permission, they sat together in the empty lobby, piano and mop bucket creating strange harmony. Daniel showed her how to feel the keys, count the spaces, create rhythm from breath and heartbeat. "Music doesn't live in your eyes or even your ears," he explained. "It lives in your whole body. Feel this." He played a low note. "That vibration, that's music talking to your bones." Lila laughed with pure delight. "I can feel it in my chest, like thunder but nice." They practiced for 20 minutes. Simple scales, basic rhythms, nothing fancy. But Lila was glowing with joy by the end. Daniel didn't know that this little girl was Lila Voss, the blind daughter of the building's CEO. Didn't know he was breaking a dozen unspoken rules about fraternization, about safety protocols, about staying in his lane. When the music ended, he heard the sharp echo of high heels approaching fast. Authoritative clicks on marble floor. Someone important, someone angry. A woman stood at the entrance, looking at them with an expression Daniel couldn't quite read. Shock, fear, fury. Elena Voss, the girl's mother, CEO of the building. owner of everything including technically Daniel's job. "Who are you?" she demanded coldly, voice like winter wind cutting through the warmth. Daniel stood slowly, not intimidated but careful. "I'm the night floor cleaner, ma'am. Your daughter was here alone. I was just making sure she was safe. By teaching her piano, by keeping her company until you arrived." Elena stared at him for a long moment, saw his worn janitor's uniform, his calloused hands, his gentle eyes, saw her daughter smiling wider than she had in 2 years. "Lila, come, now." "But Mom, Mr. Daniel was teaching me." "Now, Lila." Elena grabbed her daughter's hand, not rough but firm, and left quickly, but her eyes kept returning to that man. Something about his posture, his complete lack of apology or performance, the way her daughter had trusted him immediately. Later that night, alone in his small apartment, Daniel told Evan about the blind girl. "She plays like you used to hum, buddy, before Mom died, before everything changed." Evan, quiet boy with his father's gentle eyes, looked up from his homework. "Will you teach her?" "I don't think her mother wants me to. I'm just the janitor. People like us don't teach people like them." "But you're a good teacher. You taught me. You know music better than anyone." Daniel smiled sadly. After the accident that took his wife and damaged his hearing, he'd stopped playing music professionally. The partial deafness made perfect pitch impossible, made studio work impossible. But he could still hear rhythm in his remaining ear, still feel music in his bones like language his body remembered even when his ears couldn't quite hear. "Some people don't think janitors can teach anything important, Ev." "Then they're wrong," Evan said with the simple certainty of children who haven't learned class prejudice yet. "You're the smartest person I know." Daniel pulled his son close, kissed the top of his head. "Thanks, buddy, but the world doesn't work the way it should." The girl had left sheet music on the bench, probably forgotten in her hurry to leave. Daniel picked it up carefully. Braille dots raised on special paper, and the faint scent of lavender oil, a child's careful preparation, a student ready to learn, expecting a teacher who never came. He tucked it in his locker to return the next day, but couldn't stop thinking about that little girl's smile, about how music had made her glow, about how rarely he saw Evan smile like that anymore. The next day, Daniel returned the sheet music to the reception desk, asked them to give it to Lila Voss. The receptionist looked at him strangely. "The CEO's daughter? You know her?" "We met at the piano." But that evening, little Lila appeared again, navigating through the lobby with her white cane, memory, and determination. "I'm sorry, my mother said I can't come back, but I want to keep learning." He smiled gently. "I teach for free. In exchange, you tell me about the colors of sound." Lila laughed, a pure sound like bells. "Sound has colors. Your voice is warm brown, like hot chocolate. Safe." From that day, every Tuesday and Friday night, they played music together, just a few songs each time. Daniel taught her to feel the piano keys through breath, count rhythm by heartbeat. "Close your eyes, but you're already doing that," he had joked gently. "Now close your mind's eye, just feel. The piano talks through your fingertips." "What does it say?" "Different things to different people. What does it say to you?" "It says I'm not broken, just different." Daniel's throat tightened. "You're not broken at all. You're just learning a different language." One evening, Lila asked suddenly, "Do you have children?" He went quiet, voice dropping an octave. "Yes, a boy your age." "I want to meet him." Daniel just smiled. "Someday, maybe." Elena began noticing things. Security cameras recorded her daughter in the lobby late at night with the janitor. At first, she was furious, ready to fire him immediately, call the police, destroy this man who dared approach her vulnerable daughter. She ordered security to stop it. But then she watched the monitor footage. Really watched it. Her daughter was laughing, really laughing. "Lila hasn't laughed like that since she lost her sight 2 years ago," the piano teacher said when Elena called her home. "Whatever he's doing, it's working. She's connecting to music again. She'd given up, you know. After her father died, after the accident that took her vision, she'd stopped trying." That night, Elena came to the building, stood behind the glass wall, hidden in shadows, watching her and daughter and that man. When the music ended, she saw him place his hand on the keys, Tap 4 light beats. Lila responded with 4 beats back. A private signal. A connection. Elena recognized it immediately. That was the habit her late husband used to do when teaching their daughter piano before he died. 4 beats, their secret code for I'm here, I'm listening, you are doing great. How did this janitor know? How did he understand? She left, tears flowing without understanding why. Grief she thought she'd processed 2 years ago suddenly fresh and raw. Her husband had died in a car accident. Lila had been in the car, survived but lost her vision. Elena had been burying herself in work ever since, unable to face her daughter's disability, unable to help in any meaningful way. And now this stranger, this janitor, was reaching her daughter in ways Elena couldn't. The next morning she called security. Don't stop him anymore. Let him teach her. Ma'am, are you sure? We don't know anything about him. I know enough. He's teaching my daughter to live again. That's all that matters. She had her assistant run a background check anyway. Daniel Reed, former sound engineer. Wife died in apartment fire 3 years ago. Lost partial hearing, trying to save her. Took any job he could to support his son. Clean record. References from previous employers all said the same thing. Quiet, reliable, kind. The old cloth Daniel used to wipe the piano. Lila kept it, told her mother, it smells like Dad did, like sawdust and kindness. Elena cried when her daughter said that. Cried because her daughter remembered. Cried because a stranger's kindness reminded her child of her father. Cried because she'd been so busy being CEO, she'd forgotten how to just be mom. A security guard, resentful of his low pay and eager for money, took photos. CEO Voss's daughter intimate with janitor. Posted them online with suggestive captions. Media immediately swarmed. Who is this man? What's the real relationship? Inappropriate contact with minor? The board demanded Elena release a statement, stop the images from affecting stock prices, protect the company's reputation above all else. In a moment of panic and fury, she went to Daniel during his shift, cornered him in the supply closet and said, I'll send you money, a lot of it. Just leave, disappear. Daniel stayed silent, eyes looking straight at her without flinching. If you want me gone, I'll go. But who will teach your daughter to hear the world again? The question made her throat close, but she still turned away. Still chose her company over her daughter. Still performed the role of CEO instead of being a mother. That night, an electrical short sparked on the ground floor. Fire spread quickly toward the piano area. Old building, dry wood. Everything happened fast. When fire alarms blared, everyone evacuated. But Lila couldn't hear the directional instructions clearly, got disoriented, ended up trapped in the lobby as smoke filled the space. Daniel had just finished his shift, was in the parking garage, saw smoke, immediately turned back. Didn't think, didn't calculate, just ran. He rushed into the smoke, following the sound of weak piano key tapping. The girl was trying to play Light in the Dark, the piece they'd been practicing, hoping someone would hear, using music as a distress signal. He found her under the piano where she'd crawled seeking shelter, grabbed her, covered her face with his shirt, guided her to the emergency exit. His back burned, his lungs screamed. His partial deafness made it harder to navigate through chaos. But he kept moving. Elena had just arrived, screamed, Lila! Saw Daniel carrying her daughter out, his clothes smoking, skin blistered. She collapsed to her knees, grabbed them both, sobbing, Why did you go in there? Daniel breathed roughly, voice ragged, Because I couldn't save the first one. The sentence made her understand everything. His wife had died in a similar fire. He'd tried to save her, failed, lost his hearing partially from the explosion. Had been living with that guilt for 3 years. Tonight, he'd saved someone else's daughter. Given himself a second chance to be the hero he couldn't be before. Media coverage after that shifted entirely. Janitor saves CEO's daughter from fire, refuses reward money. Elena held a press conference, voice shaking. He doesn't need money, but I owe him a life, my daughter's life, and maybe my own. The city went silent. First time they'd seen that CEO bow her head before an ordinary man. I judged him, wanted him gone, chose my reputation over my daughter's happiness. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Reporters shouted questions. She ignored them all, walked off stage, went directly to the hospital where Daniel was being treated for smoke inhalation and burns. "I'm sorry," she said simply, "for everything, for doubting you, for trying to pay you off, for being so afraid of what people thought that I couldn't see what my daughter needed." Daniel, oxygen mask on his face, just nodded. "You were protecting her. I understand, but sometimes protecting means letting people in, not keeping them out." The scandal turned out to be real, but it was beautiful truth. The fire rescue recreated Daniel's past tragedy, but this time he saved the child, giving him redemption he didn't know he needed. After the fire, the building closed for repairs. Elena took leave from work, spent time with her daughter for the first time in 2 years. Really spent time. Not distracted by phone calls or emails. Just present. She invited Daniel and Evan to visit. Evan and Lila became instant friends, both learning to hear music together, both carrying losses too heavy for their small shoulders. Daniel repaired the burnt piano, transformed the damaged wood into a small table placed in Elena's living room, a memorial to what survived, to what could be rebuilt. Elena watched him work, asked, "Aren't you afraid of fire anymore?" I learned how to stand close to it without burning, how to respect it instead of fearing it. Fear paralyzes, respect empowers. Every afternoon, all four of them sat together. 2 children, 2 adults, 1 piano, countless songs. Lila's spirit recovered gradually, learning piano again through sound and breath and rhythm, not through sight, but through feeling. Her fingers grew confident. Her music grew rich. One day she said, "I can hear Dad in the way you play, Mr. Daniel." Elena smiled through tears. "Your father would be so proud of you. And of Mr. Daniel for teaching me when everyone else gave up." At Lila's first small performance at the Children's Hospital, playing for kids who were sick and scared and needed beauty, she performed Light in the Dark perfectly. Every note clear, every pause intentional. When the last note resonated, Elena stood up, held Daniel's hand, whispered, "You taught my daughter to love the world again." He replied, "No, she taught me to forgive the world, to forgive myself." The hospital audience, other parents of sick children, doctors and nurses all rose in standing ovation. Not for technical perfection, for emotional truth, for a blind girl teaching them all to see better. Later, in the hospital cafeteria, Evan and Lila sat together sharing French fries, talking about music and favorite colors and whether dogs could understand piano music. Elena and Daniel watched them from a distance. "I spent 2 years trying to fix her disability," Elena said. "Took her to specialists, tried experimental treatments, spent millions on doctors who couldn't restore her sight, but you did what none of them could. You helped her accept herself, be happy as she is. She didn't need fixing. She needed accepting. There's a difference. I'm learning that finally." Months passed, the building reopened. Elena offered Daniel a position as head of building services. Better pay, benefits, respect. He declined. "I like cleaning. It's honest work. I see results. Start with dirty floor, end with clean floor. Simple, clear, no politics, no performance. Just work." She laughed. "You're the only person who's ever turned me down. I'm not ambitious, I just want enough. Enough to care for Evan, enough to sleep peacefully, enough to not worry constantly. That's all. That's everything, isn't it? We spend our lives chasing more, forgetting that enough is actually the goal." Lila gave Daniel a hair clip his wife had left behind, found in their belongings. The girl said, "Mom says every musical note is a breath still living. This is from your wife. She's still breathing in your music." Daniel cried. For the first time since the funeral, he cried without shame in front of others. 1 year later, Elena made the decision that shocked her entire industry. She stepped down as CEO of Voss Global at age 31, walking away from a position most people would kill for. "Are you insane?" her board members demanded. "You're at the peak of your career." No, she replied calmly. I was at the peak of my career. Now I'm at the beginning of my life. She used her considerable wealth differently now. Together with Daniel, they opened a small nonprofit center for visually impaired children called Light and Sound House, located in a renovated church with incredible acoustics. On the wall hung a hand-painted sign in both print and braille. Sound doesn't need eyes, only heart. Lila, now 9 years old and confident in ways her mother had never imagined possible, taught music to younger children, showed them that disability isn't inability, that different doesn't mean less, that their blindness was just one characteristic, not their entire identity. Evan, now 10, helped repair instruments alongside his father, learning craftsmanship and patience, learning that value isn't determined by job title or salary, but by impact and integrity. Daniel cleaned the practice rooms, smell of wood polish and sound of piano, filling every space with purpose. But now he wasn't just the janitor. He was co-founder, music therapist, the heart of the whole operation. His official title was Director of Acoustic Learning, but the kids just called him Mr. Daniel, and that was the title he treasured most. Elena walked in one quiet morning before students arrived, watched Daniel tuning a donated piano, and said quietly, "The day you saved my daughter from that fire, I promised myself something. If I got a second chance at life, at being present, at actually living instead of just achieving, I would stay." He paused his work, looked up at her. "Stay where?" "Stay in the place where I don't need to perform. Where I can just be myself, flaws and fears and all. Where enough is genuinely enough." Daniel set down his tuning tools, stood, and looked at this woman who'd transformed so completely, from Ice Queen CEO to warm, present, real human being. "You've changed. We both have. You're not running from grief anymore. I'm not hiding in work anymore. We're both actually living." Lila, who'd quietly entered, played several notes on the nearest piano, said with pride, "I wrote this piece for Mr. Daniel. It's called The Second Sunrise, because he taught me that even in darkness, you can find a new beginning if you're willing to feel your way toward it." Music filled the air, warm as sunlight through rain, complex as grief transforming into hope. A melody about darkness giving way to light, about blindness seeing more clearly than sight ever could, about loss somehow, mysteriously, finding gain. Elena leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder naturally, without performance or hesitation, and whispered, "Family isn't where you're born, or who shares your blood. It's where you choose to be, and choose again every single morning when you wake up." Daniel squeezed her hand, said nothing, because some moments don't need words. Final scene, 4 people sat beside the old burnt piano, now restored and more beautiful than before, scarred wood telling stories of survival. Outside the massive church windows, a rainbow appeared after morning rain that had cleaned the city. The children played together, creating music that didn't follow any rules except joy. The adults watched peacefully, no phones, no distractions, just presence. Lila stopped playing suddenly, turned her face toward where she heard her mother breathing, and asked, "Mom, can you see the rainbow?" "Yes, sweetheart, it's beautiful." "Describe it to me? Every color? Every detail?" Elena described colors in terms Lila could understand. Red was deep bass notes, warmth, excitement. Orange was mid-range, comfort, home. Yellow was light treble, joy, laughter. Green was harmony, peace, belonging. Blue was sadness, that's okay to feel. Indigo was depth, mystery, wonder. Violet was high notes, magic, possibility. Lila listened carefully, absorbing every word, then played notes corresponding to what she heard. The rainbow became a song. The colors became music. The visual became visceral. "That's how I see now," Lila explained to the other blind children who'd gathered to listen, drawn by the music like moths to flame. "Everything becomes music. Everything becomes feeling. Everything becomes meaning. I don't need eyes when I have ears and heart and imagination." Daniel and Elena exchanged glances across the room. They'd both been blind in their own ways before this. She to anything beyond work and status and achievement. He to anything beyond grief and survival and guilt. Two broken people, two beautiful broken children, creating something mysteriously whole together. Years passed like music, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, always meaningful. Light and Sound House became quietly renowned, not for fame or profit, but for actually helping children, for seeing them as complete humans, not problems to fix or puzzles to solve. Reporters still occasionally contacted Elena. Do you regret leaving corporate life? Giving up all that power and money and influence? She'd smile her real smile now, the one that reached her eyes. I regret not leaving sooner. I was successful, but not happy. Rich, but not fulfilled. Powerful, but not peaceful. Now I'm all three, because I finally understand what actually matters in this short, precious life. Which is being present, being honest, being enough just as you are. Teaching children that different doesn't mean less, that disability doesn't define them, that they're perfect exactly as they are, that the world needs to change to accommodate them, not the other way around. Daniel, standing nearby, added quietly, and teaching them that sometimes the people society dismisses, the janitors and cleaners and ordinary folks, have the most important lessons to teach. That job titles mean nothing. That character means everything. The message completing full circle, wrapping around like a song returning to its starting note. Even when eyes cannot see, the heart recognizes real people. And real people change the world one small act of kindness at a time. If you believe healing stories like this one deserve to be told, stories that remind us what truly matters in life, leave a comment and subscribe to Strong Dad Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.